It's Gilliangladrag Fluff-a-torium show.
Good girl, Bowie. Good girl. You nearly escaped a couple of times, didn't you? You were quite keen to jump off the chair. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? I hope you're well. Merry Christmas. Is it too late to say that? Probably said it before. I'll say it again. Okay, Bowie, now you do need to get off the chair. Please. Off, Betty, off. Hello and welcome. So this is very exciting because I am in the new TV studio, which seems crazy because, you know, 6 months ago we were somewhere completely different. So lots of hard work, but we're there. And it's very dark in here, so I can't see what's going on outside. But I do believe there has been a yellow warning of snow and ice. I'm not quite sure if I like a yellow warning of snow and ice, but I know some people have got snow, and I know that's quite exciting. And I guess in a oh, sorry, that funny noise was the dog, not me. In a lockdown situation, snow and ice, that's fine actually. I can't be dealing with snow when I need to be, when I'm busy, that's the thing. So anyway, I know lots of you are locked down as we are here in Tier 4. And some of you aren't, like in Cornwall. Please say hello on the chat, wherever you're from, so we can all see where we're all from, because that's quite exciting for me, and for Chris. Hello, Chris. Oh. Oh. You can tell this is very rehearsed, can't you?
Sorry, I was fiddling with my buttons.
Yes. Did you have a lovely Christmas, Chris? Did you have a lovely Christmas?
Yes, it was fabulous.
Good.
Fabulous. Lovely.
What was the highlight?
The highlight probably was the enormous quantity of nuts that I received.
Nuts. Yeah, he does like a nut. In fact, that's pretty much all he likes, nuts. Good. Well, that's fabulous. So we're in this kind of weird bit in between Christmas and New Year. Not sure, do I like that bit? I'm not normally in the country, so it's difficult to say because I don't normally think about it. But yeah, I guess I kind of like it because it's kind of chilled, isn't it? And you can kind of do stuff that you wouldn't normally do, I mean. Or you can do nothing and just lie around in front of the telly, although that does get a bit boring. Anyway, so that's why we're going to do today's tutorial, let me crack on, where we're going to turn an old cardigan or a jumper and give them a new lease of life, turn them into a cushion, whoop, a cushion and some fingerless mitts, of which I have made one so far. Oh, sorry.
In front. Well. When you put a cushion in front of your
sorry,
microphone, Gillian.
Of which I've made a cushion. Sorry, I'm so unprofessional. And so far have made one fingerless mitt, about to make the other one with you. Now, all you need for this is an old, preferably a cardigan, and I'll tell you why. Because the cardigan situation gives you this openable and closable situation here, where you can obviously open it up, clean it, do whatever with it, needle felt it, you know, and then put your cushion pad in and out. Obviously, if you've got a jumper, of which I have another one here, ready and waiting to be turned into a cushion, that's a slightly different situation because either you've got to create an opening like an envelope opening that you'd put on the back of that, or you could just seal your cushion pad in forevermore, which is also fine, isn't it? So I'll be going through those different options. So any jumper will do, any woolly jumper. I'm not talking about sweatshirts here and fleeces. I'm talking about woolliness. So it doesn't matter if it's acrylic or if it's real wool. It can be either. Might take this off, it's quite warm in here. It can be either, as long as it's that kind of woolliness, okay? And then it can just be something that you've worn to death. I've got a couple of actually cashmere cardigans, believe it or not, that I did wear to death. This is all that's left of this one now. Cheap cashmere cardigans. I think this one was from Boden and this one was from Uniqlo originally. and I just wore them and wore them and wore them. And this one's got holes in the elbows, and it's all stained and horrid. And then this was an old Kath Kidson jumper that I bought on a whim a few years ago, and then shrank in the washing machine. So that's the other thing I was going to say. We all have done that. We have all shrunk a jumper or a cardigan in the washing machine by mistake. If you do that, there's no need to throw it away. Even if it comes out way, way smaller, you can still do what I'm going to show you today with these, and give them a new lease of life, upcycle, repurpose, whatever you want to call it. So let's start off by talking about the cushion part of the process, and then I'll move on to the fingerless mitt bit, okay? All you're going to need for this, really, ideally, is some pinking shears that give you that ziggy-zaggy edge when you cut with them, because that will prevent fraying to a certain extent, a little bit. But if you don't have those, then a normal pair of really sharp dressmaking scissors, also absolutely fine. And then you're also just going to need some matching thread, needle and thread, or if you've got a sewing machine, hoik it out, spark it up, now's the time. Give it an oil. Do you oil sewing machines? Don't know. And then you can easily do this with a sewing machine. It's actually a lot faster. But if you don't have a sewing machine, you can very easily do it with needle and thread. Okay, so the first thing to do, let me just put that one out of the way for a second and get the other cardigan here, is to kind of, if you want to go to the overhead shot, sweetie, please, is to kind of make a plan, okay? So with this one, you can see I've just pinned along here, because this is roughly the bit that I'm going to use for the cushion. Now, obviously, I've got this rib on the bottom of it here, and the button's going up here, and that's absolutely fine. It's probably best to try and go in between two buttons, or if you're right on the edge of a button, then just remove the button, because you're going to sew a seam there. Okay, so I am literally going to do this now live. I'm just going to cut this bit off and just show you how you need to be a little bit gung-ho about this. Don't worry about it too much, but I would recommend, you know, you can get a tape measure if you want, or you can get some tailor's chalk. If you want to draw a line, you can chalk a line, whatever. I've just used some dressmaker's pins. I'm just going from the point of the armpit here, and I'm literally just going to cut the other side of my pins. I'm going to take my glasses off so I can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to cut right through the button bands there, and I'm going to go all the way over to the other side, like so. Okay, so let's just get rid of that for a second, and obviously that can be your fingerless mitts in a minute. Okay, so what I'm left with here is slightly rectangular in shape. It's not quite square. So now you've got the option. You've either got the option of cutting these sides and making another seam here and here. So you're going to square it up and you'd sew around all four sides. Or if you want to do what I did, I just kept my cushion quite rectangular, okay? And I've just created a seam on either side of the button band here, and then this is kept as the seam from the original cardigan, okay? So that's probably what I'm going to do with this one as well. So what you're probably after, if you want to come back to me a sec, Chris, what you're probably after is trying to find a slightly rectangular cushion pad to put in here as opposed to a square one. Now, cushion pads, quickly before I start this, we don't sell cushion pads because they come in so many shapes and sizes. We would just need another warehouse to store them all in. So I'd recommend just going online. Personally, I like to buy the feather ones, but they aren't expensive. You can get them from all sorts of places. I'm not going to mention the names of the obvious ones like, you know, well, eBay, Etsy, and then the other one that begins with A. I don't like them. But, you know, anywhere like that, or actually, what's that place called? Dunelm Mill? If you're in the UK, that is obviously. Places like that, they'll all sell them and they're not expensive. So I'd recommend, now, when you get your cushion pad, if you're making a cushion cover, you want the cushion pad to really fill it, okay? So whatever size that you end up with this being, make sure you get one that that fits that size. Don't get one that's slightly smaller. Make sure it's nice and puffy and it really fills it out. Okay, that's my recommendation for that. So if you're going with the shape that I've just cut, you'll want one that's slightly rectangular. So just measure it when you're done. Okay, now if you're going to add the trimming in, so I've added this rather fetching, lovely fringing that we sell in all the colours. It's quite plush actually. It reminds me of you know, of a 1970s sofa, if I'm honest. I'm just trying to think what it just reminds. I think of my grandpa's sofa or something. I don't know. It's reminding me of something. It's quite plush anyway. If you want to use something like this, we sell this in all the colours. Or in fact, with this blue one that I'm doing here, I'm going to do this orange pom-pom trimming just on these two sides. Okay. Now, what you're going to do now is you're going to turn it all inside out, okay? And obviously I've pinned it together at the top, but I just want to show you how you pin the trimming in, okay, before you sew it all together. So you want your trimming, when you've turned it all inside out, you want your trimming to be poking inwards, okay? So if you can go back to the overhead shot for me, please, Chris. So I don't know if you can see okay, but what I'm doing now is I'm having the trimming inwards, okay, like this. And then I'm just going to start pinning it along the top here. So I'm just going to grab my pins. If you've got any questions as I'm going along, please type them up and either Chris will read them out and I will answer them here and now live, or if he misses one because he's looking in 3 different places, I will answer them afterwards. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to undo the buttons here so that we can gain easy access. So this is the beauty of the cardigan situation, okay? If you've got a sweater, it's a slightly different deal, and I'll talk about that in a second. So now you can see what will happen once this is sewn together. You'll have your pom-poms like that, basically, on the outside once it's all sewn together. Now, I would recommend not only pinning all of this into place, but I would recommend doing that very, very boring thing that no one likes to do, but we should, called tacking, okay? And I would recommend doing that because it's actually, speaking from experience yesterday, when I was machining this, why don't I open this one up actually? Let me open this one up and take the cushion pad out, and you can actually see what I did yesterday with this one. So this is the beauty of the cardigan. Look, you've got your ready-made opening for your cushion pad. Okay, so when I was actually machining this together yesterday, I just did it straight from being pinned. Okay, can you see? And I pinned it all together and then I machined it along. And it worked, but it was a bit hit and miss here and there. And I would thoroughly recommend tacking that in place first. So going back to this one here, okay, what you would do was you would pin it first like this and then tack it. And then when I turn it through the right way, that's roughly what it's going to look like, okay? So I'm not going to do all of that right here, right now, but we would do that going along that length there, okay? And then I would do the same thing going along this length here, okay? And then once that's all done, obviously you turn it the right way round again, and then you pop your cushion inside, and voila, that's your cushion, okay? Now, I've done quite a lot of needle felting onto the front of this one, and I did that by popping in some, bear with me a second, caller, some foam, okay, and then using quite a lot of different colours, wool tops, and needle felting it all on. Now, I don't think I'm going to have time to go through that in a great deal of detail today, so I'm planning to come back next Sunday and go into more detail about how you can decorate these with some ideas and how-tos about how you actually do the needle felting. So today I just want to run through the process of actually turning these things into cushions and into fingerless gloves. Okay. Now, if you're using a jumper instead of a cardigan, here's one I prepared earlier. Now this one has got a little design on the front already, so this is probably one that I wouldn't choose to then decorate, but I might want to add some trimming around the edge of it. But because annoyingly, Kath Kidston has put the design sort of over the chest, I suppose, it sort of sits there. It's not going to be quite sort of central to the whole thing if I just turned the whole thing straight into a cushion. So if you can go back and over to the overhead shot again for me, Chris, you can see with this one, which is a jumper, I'm actually going to cut it out on all four sides. So I'm going to kind of just go to the point here where it meets the armpit. I don't know if you can see on Instagram, where meets the armpit here, and I've just pinned it down like that and like that. So this one I will hem on all four sides. So if I just come into it probably from the top, and you do need your scissors to be quite sharp if you're using pink shears. This is a really, really thick jumper, okay? I'm just going to remove that pin so I don't get it caught in there. And I'm just going to go all the way down to a line around there, because what I want to do is try and make this like a small square cushion. So I'm just going to now always go the other side of your pins. Remember to allow for a seam, okay? So if you want your cushion to be a certain size, always remember that you're going to have a seam involved, so it will end up a tiny bit smaller. And then I'm probably going to cut it around here. So it's going to be quite diddy, this cushion, but I wanted this to be fairly central into the middle of it, okay? I don't know whether I'll add a trim onto that as well, but if I did, it would look something like that when it was done, okay? Quite pretty, actually. So I'd have it probably this way round as a cushion, okay? And then obviously I could use the sleeves for this one as fingerless mitts as well, although this is really quite thick. It's a very different feel to the cashmere one that I've already made. So that's, I won't bore you with me cutting this out, but that's pretty much what I would do with this jumper. So with this one, I'm going to be hemming it on all four sides. And then probably what I'll do is I'll do those three, then insert the cushion pad. And then I will sew this side, this last side up by hand, and just keep the cushion pad inside, locked inside. So I'm not going to create an opening. But if you wanted to, you could create a zip opening down here. Or the other way of doing it is on the back, cutting this in half on the back and overlapping them slightly. Before you cut the whole thing out, you would need to plan that. And then you can create an envelope opening on the back. But I think I'm just going to keep it really simple and make a non-opening version for this jumper. Okay. Now, jumper or cardigan, back to me please, Christophe. Jumper or cardigan, you're going to have sleeves, unless it's a gilet. Is that the name for a...
Body warmer.
No, not a body warmer. A vest? What's a jumper without sleeves? A tank top. A tank top, thank you. I don't know what you call them in other places, but we...
Top of the tank.
The top of a tank top. Unless you've got a tank top. If you've got a tank top, you won't be making no fingerless gloves. But as long as you've got sleeves, then you can. All right, so what did I do with this? So the first thing was I cut it off, obviously. And then there's a tricky little bit of sewing. Well, it's not tricky, it's dead easy, to turn it into a little fingerless glove. Now, what you need to decide, once you've cut your sleeve off, let's cut it off and actually do it. So if you go to the overhead for me a sec, Chris, please. So I just marked roughly where I'd cut the other one off. Remember, when you're doing this, that you're going to allow for some seams. I've actually turned that over twice at the bottom of it. And then the top, I've used the rib. Let's just cut it off. I want to talk to you about that. Just going to cut it across like that. And I was thinking, oh, could this be a little shrug? Possibly not. Not quite sure what that could be. All right, so with the sleeve that you cut off, invariably, and indeed with this one as well, you're going to have a ribbed end that's usually the old cuff, okay? And then you're going to have the bit that you cut. Now, it's up to you which way round you want to do this, but I found it easier to keep the ribbed end as the end that's going to sit over my hand. As to how long you want to cut this off, I would recommend, obviously you're going to be going in from this end, but I'd recommend sticking your arm in it before you decide. Let me just roll my sleeve up a bit. And then roughly deciding how far you want it to go up your arm. So you might want it to end roughly where your watch is, or you might want it to go right up under your jumper for warmth, and then allow at least an inch more before you cut, okay? And again, using the pinking shears just gives you that nice serrated edge, stops it from fraying a little bit. Now, some sleeves will vary, obviously, and be a lot wider. Some will be narrower. Just depends on the shape of the original jumper. These aren't particularly wide, but I felt that when I made this one, I just wanted to narrow it down a little bit. So in fact, I ended up sewing another seam down. Let me turn it inside out for you so you can see what I did, and we can take it from there. So the first thing to decide is which way you want to do the rib. I found that because we're creating a thumb hole at the top here, and incidentally, you don't have to create a thumb hole at the top. If you want to, you could just have this going all the way across your hand. So it could just literally just be like this, okay, if that's what you prefer. I decided I wanted a thumb hole, and I think it's easier to do that with your ready-made ribbing so that you're not dealing with any hemming here than it is to do it at the other end. And also, I feel like the other thing is that it's sort of usually a sleeve will flare slightly wider as it goes up. So I felt like this was the best way round to do it. So what I did was I started off by turning the sleeve inside out, okay? And then you do need to just pop your arm in. I think really fingerless mittens need to go over your knuckles and then end somewhere around there. I mean, the idea is that you're sort of still operational, your hand's still operational, which I love. You can still use your phone. And then you get a pin or whatever, and then you try and just, it's difficult to pin it together, so just put a pin in roughly in the middle of the V shape between your finger and your thumb, okay, to give you an idea of where your V is going to be. Then remove your hand. And what I should have done, actually, let's just do that again, is get your seams straight to start with. So make sure your seam, if there is one, which there probably will be, is there exactly on the right. Then do what I just said. Put that in the middle of the V, okay? So then take your arm out again. I've got a little hole there, actually. That's a bit sad. So that's roughly the middle of the V shape, okay? And you can see what I've done is I've sewn it first into the V, and then I've cut it in the middle, and then I've actually overlocked it on the sewing machine. But you could do this by hand just with a needle and thread. So that's the first thing to do. Then the next thing to do is to make a plan about how you might want to sew a seam and just make it slightly narrower coming down. Now I've trimmed mine off, again I've over sewn it on the sewing machine, or if you've got an overlocker, even better. But I think from memory I took off about 1 centimetre at the widest part, so going down like this it was about 1 centimetre that I ended up removing. So pin that first. Again, I would recommend tacking this, okay, before you sew it. I just want to show you quickly how you can do this just with a needle and thread though. And no sewing machine. So if you allow more space than you think you're going to need and just tack it first using large stitches and just go down into the V. You can pin it first as well if you want to. Go down into the V. I should have used a contrasting thread, shouldn't I? Didn't think that through, Gillian. And then come back up the other side, like so. Like this. Any questions, anybody, while I'm doing this? Has anyone said anything? Have we got anybody out? There's anybody out there?
So I have to make an admission.
Oh gosh, yes. What now? Go on.
Janet on Facebook has busted me.
Why?
And she says the overhead camera looks much better than the head-on camera. I totally agree, Janet. And just as we came on air, I fiddled with something, i.e. changed a battery, and messed up my front shot because it looked lovely. So my apologies. I shall flagellate myself greatly later.
Ooh, gracious me. Okay.
As far as questions go, Facebook has been having a day.
Having a day?
Yeah, it
what does that
dropped
mean?
out and then came back.
Oh, crikey, okay.
Yeah.
Should we just go back to doing it on my phone next week?
Yeah, I think probably it's best.
All right, so something like that is what we're after, okay? So I would do that, and then I'd use the sharp dressmaking scissors to cut into that V. Not too far, but that will just allow you to just then turn them inside out and check that you've got everything going on in the right place. Okay, let me just cut that off a sec. I'm just going to take these pins out for a second. I'm just going to show you the finger and the thumb situation. Okay, so let me just turn that the right way out like that, and then show you how that works. There we go. Now, obviously, that's only been done. Can you come back to me, or is the camera shot so awful that no one can? I do look a funny colour, don't I? I kind of look green.
You look slightly jaundiced.
I look jaundiced. Well, let me just explain that I'm not jaundiced and it's just the camera. And I've actually had a very nice Christmas and I'm perfectly well. And that this jumper is pink. Anyway, yeah, just remember that you've only just tacked this. So don't go like singing and dancing and doing lots of jazz hands wearing them before you've sewn them up properly. So yeah, so then just turn them back the right way and over sew. So you would cut this more carefully, okay? Sew it tiny fairy stitches really tightly, over sew the top, and then you're going to sort of do the equivalent of an overlocker, which is sewing over the edge of it so that it can't unravel and it can't fray and fall to bits, okay? But essentially that is it. I mean, it's pretty damn easy, isn't it? So that is my pair. I haven't sewn the seam down the side, obviously. That's my pair of fingerless mitts. Now with the bottom here, so you've got a raw edge at the bottom, which you've just cut with your pinking shears. If you go back to the overheads, please, then I will show everyone what I've done. So I've double hemmed this, okay? It's inside out at the moment. I just want to show you, I actually did a few stitches on the machine, either side, here and here. And then if I just turn it the right way out again, then what I've done is I just did a little decorative cross stitch actually here and here. And then what I've done is my favourite stitch in the whole world. I've done a blanket stitch going around the edge, but you could do anything. You could do a running stitch, you could leave it as it is. You could just do a little stitch in the middle. You could add a button. And I've used our hand-dyed perlé thread to do my blanket stitch here. I've also used the same thread to do a few decorative stitches on my jug here on the front, which I've needle felted first, and then I've done some French knots and just some stitching on top. So yeah, I just did a little blanket stitch around the bottom, so that's now doubled over twice, and I know it's not going to go anywhere. This one's finished. I now just need to decide what sort of design I'm going to put on here. Let me just put that one on, and I'll put the other one on. I mean, if you left this, it would probably just curl up and it would fray a little bit. So I don't recommend doing that. I've got a lovely hole here, so that's going to feature in my design, I expect, something to cover up the hole. But there are my pair of fingerless gloves, which I think look rather splendid. And here's my cushion cover. Okay, shall I put the cushion back in it just to finish? And then what I'm going to do next week is I'm going to show, not next week, next Sunday, is I'm going to show you a little bit more about the needle felting, because I feel like that's a whole different kettle of fish that I haven't really got time to show you all in one session today. So you can see the benefits of the old cardigan here now are that you can take your cushion pad in and out, and you've got nice easy access. So I'm just going to quickly do a button up on the back. So there's my cushion back again, slightly skewed over to one side. There's my cushion back again. There are my fingerless gloves. And here's the other weird bit that I'm probably just going to have to throw in the bin, aren't I? Anyone got any ideas about what I can do with that? I suppose you could have a shoulder warmer, could you?
Is that like some sort of crop top?
Yeah, or a crop top. Now there's a couple of projects in my book, Complete Felt Making, about actually purposely shrinking down sweaters and cardigans and scarves and so on, and repurposing them and there's a couple of projects in there. And if you do want to do that, and you do want to felt something on purpose, not by accident, then you need to choose. I used to go into like charity shops and find old jumpers that I could felt, basically. But they need to say hand wash only, okay? Because these days, all the technology's got very clever, and a lot of fibres are superwash, which means that each individual tiny fibre has been coated with something which prevents it from shrinking and prevents it from felting. So if that's the case, it's not going to felt. It might felt a bit. Funnily enough, this Cath Kidston one did, and it was only I think it was about 22% wool, and the rest was viscose and nylon and stuff. But weirdly, it did shrink. And it did say hand wash only inside. If you really want it to shrink properly though, and properly felt, it needs to be 100% wool, or I'd say over 75% wool and hand wash only. And there's a whole load of projects, well, it's not a whole load, there's a few projects in that book about what you can sort of do with these things, cut them up, make them into scarves, make them into cushions like I'm doing here. So lots that you can do, but of course most of the time we've all accidentally felted a jumper and put our best jumper, or somebody else has put it into the washing machine without our knowing, and then the tumble dryer, and then it comes out miniature sized. Anyway, so this is what you can do with them if that's happened. And I hope that's put some ideas into your head. It's the time of year, well certainly in this country it's the time of year, I don't know, is anyone watching from Australia, where it's like 100 degrees and they're all on the beach and there's a blue sky and all of that? No? No. Oh, well, they're probably busy outside at the beach, aren't they? But certainly in this country, it's the time of year when you could do with a pair of fingerless mitts, although I have to say I'm extremely hot right now. So anyway, I hope that's given you some ideas and a whole new lease of life for an old cardigan or an old jumper.
There are some questions, Gillian.
Oh, well, ask them then, dear
I've been trying
Christopher.
to. I've been waving at you and you've been ignoring me.
You've been waving at me, but it's dark.
Well, all right, I do apologise.
I can barely see you. Right, go on then. What are your
Okay,
questions?
so Helen Hamilton on Facebook says, how many strands of embroidery thread did you use?
So it's literally as it comes, Helen. So this is the ones we sell. You get 3 on a card. It's under hand-dyed threads, and they are Perle number 8. Okay, this colourway is called 43 Flame, which I particularly liked, but they come in all the colours of the rainbow. They're hand-dyed in South Africa. There's lots to choose from, and they're the same threads that are in those sets we sell, you know, called Ubuntu and summer, spring, autumn, winter, greens, blues, sea. Lots of lovely, lovely sets. Yes, it's the same thread. It's really nice, actually. I haven't really played around with it very much, but it was really nice to work on top of the needle felting with. So, recommend that.
Another question, is hand sewing enough to stop the jumper unravelling?
Absolutely, yeah. Hand sewing's fine, but you might just need to keep going over and over and over. On the sewing machine, I don't have an overlock. On the sewing machine, I just did the zigzag. So if you do the equivalent of that by hand and just keep going over that bit, where's the one I finished? Just to make sure that you know it's not going to fray, that will be absolutely fine. Same with the actual cushion, I wouldn't worry so much about it. It's not going to get as much wear and tear as the fingerless gloves will. But it's really this V that's the most important bit, because that's the bit that's going to get the most wear and tear. So just keep going over the edges here until you feel like it's not going anywhere, and then that would be absolutely fine. And the pinking shears help as well if you've got those.
Kay Lewis from Australia.
Oh, you are from Australia. Hello.
Yes,
Goodness me.
she says, but it's 10:30 p.m.
Oh, okay.
and she's in lockdown.
Oh no.
On the northern beaches, and it's raining and only 20 degrees Celsius today.
So actually you do need your fingerless
Yeah.
mitts, maybe. Well, maybe not if it's 20 degrees. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And another one, Viv from Australia is obviously somewhere else because it's stinking hot there and the skies are blue. I reckon she's probably in Frinton or something and she's just making it
Well, no, I
up.
was just about to say my cousin lives in Australia and he's been putting lots of annoying photos, not annoying, they're lovely, stories on his Instagram, and it is like completely blue skies and tropical waters and all of that, and it's just like, oh, don't show me that. Anyway, that's nice for him. Yes, go on. Another one?
Yeah, this, I think you've already answered this. Is locking stitch necessary or just hem?
I really wouldn't bother doing the overlocking. Well, and if you've got a machine, yes, do it. But don't worry too much about the other seam. It's really this bit here that I would do the ovary bit. And if you've used the ribbing bit at the top, then I think that's the best solution. Then you needn't worry too much about this. In fact, this, if I just, I don't know if I can completely, I just rolled it right under. So I haven't actually overlocked that hem at all. I've just rolled it like 3 times and then done a blanket stitch around that bit. But you could do any sort of decorative stitch, or you could do a machine stitch, or you could just do a normal stitch here and there, like little tiny ones to stop it coming away. But with the cushion, don't worry about doing the over one. Just make sure it's all sort of well sewn together, and I think that would probably be fine. And make sure that you've left a bit of a gap between where you've cut it and where you've sewn it. So just do that seam allowance, and then I think it would probably be fine. I was just thinking about the sunshine in Australia then.
Somebody in Tasmania as well.
Oh gosh, oh really? Yeah. What's it like there?
She doesn't say.
Oh, okay. Well,
but it's not in lockdown.
Oh, Tasmania's an island though, right? So maybe they've just stopped anyone from coming over.
In Tasmania.
Well, okay. Let's not go into that now.
Snakes and
well, I'm very pleased for everyone that's in Australia and doesn't need to wear gloves right now. That's very nice. But, you know, there's nothing like being prepared for, you know, your winter. It'll soon be upon you before you know it.
Do people in Australia wear gloves?
I don't know,
winter?
Actually.
Does it ever get that cold?
Does anyone
people
in Australia ever
do you ever wear gloves?
Maybe fingerless ones, because fingerless ones aren't as warm, are they? So they're more practical. Like on a chilly autumnal day, you might choose a fingerless glove if it's just a bit, if there's a nip in the air and you're not used to extreme temperatures because you live in Australia, you might think, actually, yes, I need to get those fingerless mitts out. Anyway, I think there's just a great, great use for something that otherwise may have been thrown away. So I think it's quite fun, a fun thing to do. And let's face it, we've all got plenty of time on our hands right now.
Absolutely.
Be you in Australia or be you down the road in Dorking, I think we're all under a bit of pressure to stay inside and not go visiting anyone else. So this is a nice thing to do. Right, any more questions before I sign off?
Statements. Sylvia in Birmingham says it's snowing.
Really? In Birmingham?
In Birmingham, and...
Wow, that's quite exciting as well. Extremes of temperature.
And in Tasmania, yes, we get snow.
Oh, really?
In Tasmania?
In Tasmania?
Really?
Wow.
Really?
Well, maybe it's all to do with global warming. It's all gone a bit... Well, I don't know,
okay,
but I'm saying
right.
if it's warmer here during the summer, maybe it's colder there or something. Oh, I don't know. Don't listen to me. What do I know? That is not my my strong point. That's not what I would go on Mastermind with. Right, okay. I don't know what I'd go on Mastermind with, actually. Probably nothing at all. Okay, any more questions?
Of the world.
Any more questions that aren't related to the weather? That are mostly related to... So I am going to go through the needle felting. That's probably my area of expertise, if there is one. I'm going to go through the needle felting with you on Sunday, and maybe I'll show you some of the stitches as well with the hand-dyed thread. But if you get to that point before Sunday where you've made the front of the cushion, I was also thinking about doing something on the gloves as well, perhaps, and then I'll talk more about that on Sunday. Any more before I sign off? He's just scanning. He's scanning all of the different screens.
I'm scanning.
A bit like in the Starship Enterprise.
Aberlini suggested
just like
you
Captain
become
Kirk.
a weather girl.
A weather girl.
You need to practice your
yes.
your actions.
Anyway, yes.
I think that's it. No
he
more
thinks
questions.
that's it. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining in. Have a lovely Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? I think it's Tuesday. That's a bit random as well, isn't it? Kind of wanted to do it at the weekend, but we weren't ready because we were painting the wall. But anyway, back on track now. Back on track. So have a lovely Tuesday. Have a happy new year. That was it. That's what I've missed out. Have a happy new year, which I think is on Thursday. And then New Year's Eve's on Thursday. And then we'll see you on Sunday. All right. Ciao for now, as they say. Cheery bye.
It's Gilliangladrag. It's Gilliangladrag.